it started with silence. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the kind of silence that means peace, but the kind that punches you in the gut. Unnatural. Heavy. Wrong. I'd lived in Denver long enough to know that the city never really slept. There was always something. The constant whisper of traffic down on Colfax. The hum of planes overhead. Muffled music from some bar down the block. But on that night, everything stopped. All at once. I was sitting on my couch eating leftover pizza, watching a video on YouTube. It was one of those dumb reaction clips, nothing important. Then, at exactly 9:21 p.m., the screen went black. My phone powered down in my hand. At the same moment, the string of LEDs around my window blinked out. The silence hit like a slap. The router was dead. Laptop too. No lights on the microwave. I checked the breaker box. Nothing tripped. I opened the window and looked out. It was eerie. Pitch black as far as I could see. Street lights out. Traffic signals dead. Even the buildings downtown looked like silhouettes against the sky, without so much as a flickering emergency light in a stairwell. I didn't see a single moving car. It wasn't just a blackout. I tried to reboot my phone. Nothing. No buzz, no logo, no vibration. It was just gone. Same with the laptop. I pulled the battery and tried again. Dead. That's when it hit me. I'd read about EMPs once. Electromagnetic pulses. They can knock out the grid, fry electronics, even kill car computers depending on how strong it is. And if it was high altitude and nuclear, we'd be screwed for months, maybe longer. I shut the window and locked it. For the first time in years, I double-checked all the locks in the apartment. Something deep in my gut told me this wasn't going to be fixed by morning. When the sun came up, the silence was still there, but it was heavier now. I heard voices outside, confused chatter, footsteps, people standing around like someone had hit pause on the city. I walked to the King Soopers on 9th Avenue with my backpack, hoping I was overreacting. I wasn't. The doors were jammed open with a plank of wood. Inside, the freezers were off. The lights flickered dimly. Backup generators, probably. It was packed. Nobody was yelling. Nobody was looting. Not yet. Just quiet, desperate people grabbing whatever they could. A manager stood by the entrance with a notepad, writing names of people who said they'd come back with cash. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her voice cracked when she said, "Take what you need. Power's failing soon. No trucks are coming." I grabbed what I could. Canned chili, peanut butter, crackers, charcoal, a water filter. I asked about batteries. She just shook her head. On the walk home, I passed a guy smashing a car window with a rock. 2 others stood nearby, laughing like it was a joke. I didn't stop. I didn't say anything. I held my bag close and kept my eyes down. Someone shouted, "Anybody got a working radio?" No one answered. When I got back, I boarded up my windows. Nothing fancy, just tape, blankets, and some furniture. I didn't like the way the city felt. The tension was rising, like everyone was holding their breath. That night, I heard gunshots. Not right outside, but close enough. Probably near Civic Center Park. I didn't go look. Day 3, the water pressure dropped. I'd had the sense to fill my tub and sink on the first night. I filtered every drop before drinking it, just in case. On day 4, the stench of rotten food started to creep into the streets. No refrigerators, no trash pickup. Dumpsters overflowed. You could smell it from the hallway. I gagged, trying to drag a trash bag out the fire escape. By day 5, the city was on edge. The polite desperation was turning into something sharper, more dangerous. I watched 2 guys beat each other senseless over a box of instant noodles. No one stepped in. Not even me. At night, I huddled under every blanket I owned. Temperatures were dropping fast. Denver in March can still bite hard. My hands were cracked and bleeding. I used candles sparingly. I didn't want to attract attention. Then one evening, I saw something strange. I'd climbed up onto the roof of my building, hoping to catch sight of something. Anything moving. Instead, I saw lights in the sky. Not aircraft. Not stars. Greenish, flickering sheets that pulsed across the horizon near the mountains. Almost like auroras. But not right. The colors were too sharp, too fast, and they moved like they were alive. Other people on nearby rooftops saw them too. We didn't say a word to each other. We just stood there, staring like moths. 20 minutes later, they vanished. But my skin felt burned, tingly. I went back inside and showered with cold water. My reflection looked pale. The next morning, I found dead birds all over the sidewalk. Pigeons mostly, but also a few crows. Their feathers looked scorched. The smell made me gag. I stopped going outside unless I had to. On the 9th day, I saw the convoy. 6 matte gray trucks, no markings, no license plates. They moved slowly up Broadway, like a funeral procession. Men in tactical gear stood in the truck beds, weapons slung across their chests, faces covered. No insignia, no words. Just cold, quiet presence. They didn't stop. They didn't look at anyone. Later that day, I heard the loudspeaker. A garbled voice echoing from somewhere near Stanton Park. This is a temporary government operation. Stay in your homes. Do not interfere. Then it cut off. I never heard it again. I barely slept that night. The hunger started to change me. I'd rationed well, but even that was wearing thin. I had beans, rice, and a bit of peanut butter left. I ate the beans raw. Tried to cook the rice on the fire escape using a tin can and some charcoal, but the smoke was too obvious. That night, someone tried to break in through the front door. I scared them off by shouting and waving a fake pistol, a movie prop. It looked real enough in the dark. After that, I booby-trapped the door with glass bottles tied to fishing line. If they broke, I'd know someone was coming. By the 15th day, I was desperate. I had to find food. I grabbed my pack, put on gloves and a scarf, and headed out just after dawn. The city was unrecognizable. Trash fires smoldered in alleyways. Colfax looked like it had been shelled. Burnt-out cars. Graffiti. Windows smashed. I passed 2 corpses outside a Walgreens. Nobody had bothered to cover them. I found a pawn shop half open, door hanging off its hinge. Inside, the place smelled like rust and blood. I found a knife, some matches, and a pair of steel-toe boots. Behind the counter, tucked under an old coat, I found a small emergency radio, battery-powered. I didn't dare hope it worked. Back in my apartment, I loaded fresh batteries from the junk drawer. Miraculously, the radio crackled to life. Mostly static. Then, barely audible. Containment breach. Northern sectors compromised. Denver unit is lost. It repeated once, then nothing but white noise. That night, I woke up coughing. The air smelled like burning plastic and ammonia. I thought my building was on fire. I rushed to the window and froze. The streets were filled with fog. Not natural fog. This stuff glowed faint green in the moonlight, like the lights from the sky earlier. It rolled low, hugging the pavement. My skin crawled just looking at it. I tied a wet shirt around my face and climbed to the roof. The fog was everywhere. Silent. No sirens. No animals. No wind. It felt like the end. I stood on that rooftop until the sun came up, watching the fog swirl and dissolve. The city looked like a graveyard. And somehow, I knew the worst hadn't even started yet.
They say hunger's just a feeling. that your stomach growls, your brain whines, and you push through it until the next meal. That's what I thought too, until the day the shelves stayed empty. My name's Jack Warren, 34. I live alone just outside of Enid, Oklahoma, in an old house my granddad left me after he passed. 1 acre of dry, flat land, a shed full of rusted tools, and a 2-bedroom house with creaky floors and drafty windows. I worked, I guess, as a mechanic. Ran a small garage near town, fixed trucks, tractors, a few beat-up Hondas. Life was slow, but simple. I didn't need much. Gas in the generator, cold beer in the fridge, and a few cans of chili in the pantry. But nothing stays simple forever. It started with whispers, barely audible over the noise of politics and scandal. Reports from Mexico about spoiled harvests, tomatoes rotting before ripening, corn dying before tassels formed. Then South America, Europe, even rice fields in Asia. Something was killing the crops, not a fungus, not a drought, a parasite. They called it Lamina spiralis, some microscopic nightmare that embedded itself into the vascular tissue of plants, choking them from the inside. It spread faster than wildfire, from soil to soil, seed to seed, and it was global. They tried pesticides, controlled burns, crop rotation. Nothing worked. By the time they figured out what it had already spread through half the planet's agricultural zones. By June, farmers in Kansas were burning entire wheat fields. By July, the price of a loaf of bread doubled, then tripled. I didn't panic, not at first. I kept to myself. I still had food, still had water. But the real hit came fast and silent, like a rattlesnake under dry leaves. It was a Thursday. I remember that because I always stopped by Darla's grocer on Thursdays. Local spot not far from Main Street. Usually stocked with everything. Eggs, produce, even some specialty items from Tulsa. I walked in like always, list in hand, hoping to grab a dozen eggs, canned veggies, and a few bags of rice. But something was off. The shelves were bare. No fresh produce. No canned goods. No rice. No beans. Nothing but dusty boxes of baking soda and packets of taco seasoning. Darla stood behind the register, arms crossed, her eyes bloodshot. "It's done," she said before I even asked. "No new shipments. They closed the I-35 corridor for emergency supply trucks. Everything's going to the cities now. We don't get squat." I laughed awkwardly. "Come on, Darla. There's always next week." She didn't smile. "There won't be a next week," she said. That night, I went home and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I took inventory, 3 cans of chili, 5 cans of baked beans, a half-eaten box of crackers, 4 ramen packets, 2 cans of Spam, a bag of sugar, no flour, no oil, no rice. Water wasn't a problem yet. I had a well. But food? That was a ticking clock, and I could hear every second. I started driving farther the next day, checked out other towns, all the same. People lined up outside stores that had nothing to sell. Prices written in Sharpie on scraps of cardboard. A gallon of milk for $20, if you could even find it. Gasoline was going fast, too. I filled up all the jerry cans I had and stopped driving unless I absolutely had to. By day 5, the news stopped sounding like news. Just fear. Riots in Dallas, looting in Denver, grocery trucks hijacked in Missouri. They called it the Hollow Harvest. Poetic. Like something from a novel. But this was real. I wasn't ready. I never believed in prepping. Thought it was a waste of time. But suddenly, I was that guy. Rifling through junk drawers, looking for batteries, digging around the shed for tools I hadn't touched in years. That night, I went outside and stared at the patch of dirt in my backyard. Dry, cracked, sun-baked. Could I grow something? Anything? Not with this parasite in the soil. So I did the next best thing. I started hunting. You'd think Oklahoma would be crawling with wildlife. It used to be. Out here we had coyotes, deer, raccoons, hogs, you name it. But when the crops died, so did the small game. No food for them meant fewer of them for us. It wasn't long before even the squirrels stopped showing up. Still, I kept trying. I pulled down my granddad's old .22 rifle from the attic, cleaned it best I could with the rusted kit he'd left behind, set out wire snares in the brush along the creek bed. For 3 days, I caught nothing but wind and bugs. On the 4th, I caught a rabbit, skinny thing, bones poking through fur. I said a quiet thanks and skinned it in the shed like my granddad taught me when I was a kid. Roasted it slow over coals, no seasoning, barely any meat. But it was food, and that changed everything. I started trapping more, moving farther from the house each day. I mapped out deer trails, found a spot with an old feeder someone had left years ago. It had rusted through, but I repaired it with some duct tape and old fencing wire. Filled it with dried corn from a local feed store that had been looted but not completely cleaned out. The trick was not just catching food, but keeping it hidden. Word had started spreading, mouth to mouth, radio static, half-heard CB signals. Martial law has been declared in some counties, one guy said. They shot a looter in Stillwater. Broad daylight. No trial, said another. By week 2, the country was split in two. Those who had something and those who didn't. I was in the first group, barely. That night I heard my first gunshots. Close. Just a few properties down. I killed the lights and crawled to the front window. Through the gap in the blinds, I saw headlights, then taillights. A pickup truck idling. Then it peeled away fast, tires spitting gravel. A minute later, I saw the flames. One of my neighbors, Eric, his place was burning. Whether it was raiders or desperate men, I never found out. All I know is Eric had chickens. Had. I doubled down after that. Boarded up the windows, set up motion-activated lights rigged to a car battery, placed spike strips in the tall grass on either side of the driveway, dug a pit near the barn and covered it with brush, just in case anyone came walking through without a flashlight. It wasn't about being cruel, it was survival. You learned real quick that hungry people become dangerous animals, and there were more of them every day. By week 3, I was down to 1 can of chili, 3 jars of old, preserved some jerky I made from the last year I managed to down half a bag of dog food. I was now seriously considering for myself. I rationed water carefully. Power was spotty. Generator ran a few hours a day when I needed to use the freezer or charge batteries. But the real threat wasn't inside the house. It was what started circling outside. I saw the same 2 men 3 nights in a row. Dirty jackets. One had a baseball bat. The other had a rifle. They stayed just beyond my property line, talking low, sometimes pointing toward my house. I didn't sleep. Not really. I waited, rifle across my lap, lights off, eyes open. They never tried anything, but I knew it was only a matter of time. A man named Kyle showed up at my door 4 days later. I hadn't seen him in years. He was a welder I used to drink with at the bar down in town before it closed for good. He looked gaunt, his eyes sunk deep like he hadn't slept in days. He carried a backpack and a shotgun with a busted stock. I got run off the highway, he said, standing there under the gray sky. Tried to barter fuel for food. They took the truck. I let him in, fed him a slice of dried meat and gave him a jar of water. He didn't ask for more. People didn't now. As much as I wanted to send him away, I couldn't. Not yet. There was safety in numbers. For a few days, we worked together. He helped patch the hole in the shed roof, dug out the root cellar deeper, reinforced the door with steel plate we pulled from a tractor graveyard outside town. But Kyle was twitchy. One night I caught him looking through my pantry. Just counting, he said. I didn't say anything, but I slept with my rifle closer after that. The government broadcasts came in on loop through the ham radio. Due to the ongoing agricultural crisis, martial law remains in effect. Curfews are enforced. Civilian food production is authorized only with permit. Failure to comply may result in confiscation or detention. Confiscation? That word stuck. If anyone found out I still had food, even what little I did, it wouldn't be mine for long. Kyle and I had a talk the next morning. I said I was thinking of heading west, maybe to New Mexico, where the soil was harder for the parasite to take root. Rumors said some greenhouses were still operational there. He didn't want to go. I offered him half the remaining food if he left. He looked at me like I'd pulled a knife. "You think you're better off alone?" he asked. I didn't answer. He was gone by morning. Took a can of chili, my flashlight, and my last pack of cigarettes. I let him go. Better that than something worse. By week 4, everything outside looked dead. Fields were brittle. Trees had shed leaves early, not from fall, but starvation. Even the bugs had started dying. The ecosystem wasn't built for this. Take away one link in the chain, plants, and the whole thing came down like rotten scaffolding. People were trading salt, ammunition, and alcohol now. One guy offered me 3 cans of dog food for a bottle of Jack Daniels I'd been saving since I turned 21. I turned him down. Not because I needed the whiskey, but because I needed the dog food more. That night I finally cracked and tried it. Kibbles soaked in hot water. No flavor, just mush and texture. I kept telling myself it was just beef and grains, but my stomach wasn't convinced. Still, I ate every bite.
I was 34 the morning Memphis died. Woke up to a gray sky and a silence too thick to trust. My name's Adam Mercer, born and raised in this city, and I used to think I'd die here an old man, not as Ash. The sirens had gone off plenty of times in the past year. Tornado warnings, power grid failures, even a few false alarms when that diplomatic standoff with China was still boiling. But this time was different. There wasn't panic. There wasn't chaos. There was just nothing. No birds, no engines, no hum of traffic on I-240. I lived in a modest apartment south of Midtown, and as I stood barefoot on my balcony, coffee steaming in my hand, I saw something strange on the horizon. It was a mushroom cloud, but not from a plane or missile. It had risen from the city center. The news died within minutes. Phones went black. Radios hissed static. The last image I saw was a newscaster, her mascara running, screaming into the camera before the feed cut. Then, nothing. Rumors had been floating for weeks. Terror cells had infiltrated American cities with makeshift nukes, designed to avoid air defense systems. Dirty bombs. Portable ones. Smuggled in piece by piece. Built from local hardware. Even the Department of Homeland Security didn't see it coming. Or maybe they did. And we just weren't important enough to warn. My hands shook as I packed a go bag. Water, canned beans, flashlight, batteries, knife, first aid, a pistol I barely knew how to use. I glanced once more out the window. Midtown was gone. Just dust and bones. The first week was hell. The blast didn't just kill. It woke something in people. Looting, rioting, screams in the dark. You could feel the radiation like a fever behind your eyes. And the black rain came. It wasn't natural. It didn't fall like rain. It drifted, like soot, carrying death on its shoulders. I covered every inch of exposed skin. I wore a painter's mask soaked in vinegar, hoping it might block whatever poison floated through the city. It helped. A little. I watched my neighbor Jordan stumble into the street one night. He'd been coughing for days. Then his skin turned purple like ink, and he collapsed. I didn't bury him. I couldn't risk it. I moved only at night, stuck to the shadows. The only survivors left in Memphis were desperate or dangerous. Or both. I met a woman named Lila scavenging a corner store. She had burns down her neck and carried a machete made from a broken car spring. We teamed up. No trust, just survival. She knew where to find iodine tablets and had a knack for sniffing out clean water. We stayed in the husk of a church on Union Avenue. The pews had been stacked into a barricade, and a stained glass Jesus watched us sleep from a cracked window. One night, we heard music. Not a radio. Live music. A violin. Haunting. Coming from Beale Street. We shouldn't have followed it, but curiosity's a funny thing when the world is dying. Beale was different. The buildings were half melted and charred, but candles burned in the windows. Figures danced in silence. Dozens of people, swaying, clapping, smiling. The violinist was a gaunt man in a white suit, his eyes completely black. No pupils, no whites, just void. But his music was beautiful, hypnotic. Lila pulled me away. She was trembling. "They're not alive," she whispered. "Not anymore." We ran. The music followed us. For hours. That night we found scratches down our backs. 3 long, thin slashes. We never saw what did it. 2 weeks after the blast, we met the convoy. 3 armored trucks, painted black, flying no flag. They pulled us from a ditch and offered clean suits, food, and medicine. Their leader, a grizzled vet named Roe, claimed they were part of a rogue National Guard unit that had gone off-grid. "They're not just nuking us," he told me. "They're testing us. Testing what we become when the sky turns to blood." They had a base near the old FedEx Forum. Reinforced walls, air filters, solar panels. For the first time, I felt safe. For 2 days. Then the dreams started. Everyone heard them. Whispers in the air vents. Laughter on the radios when they were turned off. Visions of people we loved, dead or missing, calling to us from hallways they couldn't be in. Roe snapped. Shot one of his own men claiming he was a ghost in a stolen skin. Lila and I fled in the chaos. Took supplies and vanished into the river fog. The Mississippi had turned thick and brown, like syrup, and carried the stench of something ancient. Heading north, we stumbled across something that shouldn't have existed. A reactor. Underground. Abandoned, but humming. Near Tipton County. It was powering something. A network. A signal. I found monitors with looping messages, government logos, warnings about Phase 2, and maps. Dozens of them, with red circles over cities. New ones. Dallas, Denver, Charlotte. Memphis was only the beginning. The clouds never cleared. The rain kept falling. Thicker. Hotter. Lila began bleeding from her gums. Her teeth fell out one morning. She didn't make it through the night. I buried her near the reactor, using a metal rod as a marker. I'm alone now. I have one map. One gun. One dog I found near the old zoo, half-starved but loyal. And I have a mission, to get to Nashville. There's a broadcast station there. A rogue signal claims it's the last free voice in the East. Maybe it's a lie, but it's hope. Hope, in the age of black rain.